Hey, what's going on my friends? Happy New Year, welcome to 2022, and the first video of the year is actually going to be a lens review. Yeah, who would have thought?
Oh, damn, you've clearly made a delay on this video, buddy.
There's another couple of videos coming up when it comes to the A7 IV and how it works and using it in a professional situation that I've been shooting it in.
So you've already released those videos. This is awkward.
But today we're talking about the Viltrox 24mm f1.8 for full frame Sony cameras. Now they do actually have this lens for a couple of different mounts as well. But yeah, this one is mounted on the A7 III right now, which is your 24 megapixel sensor. Now, there are actually a few pros with this lens, but there are actually a few cons when it comes to this lens as well. This is a really interesting lens, mainly for the fact that there isn't really much competition out there at the moment. Now, currently the Viltrox is at $429 US, whereas the next one you've got is the Samyang f1.8 at $465. I haven't got my hands on that one yet, and I really would like to test that one out to see how that is. But it is very similar price, just a little bit more than this Viltrox lens. Now, you do have the Sigma Art lens, which is a 1.4, and it's $800 US. So we're looking at double the price for this. Sure, it is a 1.4, not a 1.8. And then you've got the Sony G Master lens, which is a very, very popular lens, the 24 1.4, and that is a whopping $1,298 US. So that is pretty expensive. So this one is the cheapest, but when it actually comes down to the quality, when I did the lens testing inside the center, it is actually quite sharp, wide open at f1.8. Sure, it's a little bit soft, does lose a little bit of contrast. Out to the edges, yeah, it's a little bit soft as well, but when you stop it down to f2 and f2.8, the center gets tack sharp, the corners are really nice and sharp. F4, f5.6, and f8 obviously is incredibly sharp. It's amazing results. And then f16, which is the minimum aperture, it only has a little bit of lens diffraction, which is really good performance. Yeah, sure, there is a little bit of pin cushioning when it comes to wide open or throughout the whole range. And then there's obviously that vignetting as well, which is very, very strong vignetting. But if you do turn the lens correction on in Lightroom, there is actually a standard profile for the 24mm right here that will actually correct a lot of those things. So it is a very solid metal design. The one con about this thing is actually that manual focusing ring. Okay, look, there's a con and it's a pro. It is very, very stiff. So if you do have this on a gimbal and you're trying to do some manual focusing, there's absolutely no chance. It is very stiff, but it is linear. It is perfectly linear. I actually did a test with a little bit of a sticker on here, and I tried to match it up, went as fast as I could, then I went nice and slow, and it's perfectly linear. So if you are doing manual focusing with this lens, you will be very happy that it's actually quite good performing. When it comes to focus breathing in manual focus, and obviously autofocus as well, it's pretty low focus breathing, so that is really good for video shooters. Now, when it comes to autofocus, focus performance is phenomenal. It is super sharp, it is super fast, and it works very well, especially with the A7 IV as well. So you have no problems there with autofocus. Now it does actually have this aperture ring, just like the G Master. They're pretty much trying to copy what the G Master looks like, especially with this red sort of design here and everything, how it's laid out. But the thing about the aperture ring, it is a declicked ring, whereas Sony gives you the option to click it or declick it. So when it comes to video shooters, you will be happy that it is declicked. Some people like the clicked version, but it's a really good feature to have there. Now, another one of the cons is actually the weather sealing. So there isn't a weather sealing gasket on the bottom, and also there is a USB-C attachment on the bottom, so you can actually do a whole bunch of firmware updates if it does come in the future. But that's obviously is a little bit of integrity loss when it comes to that weather sealing. But I wouldn't be taking this into extreme weather conditions if possible, whereas like the G Master and the Sigma Art are weather sealed quite well. Now it does have a front filter thread of 55mm, which the G Master I think is 67mm, which is very standard when it comes to the Sony full frame mirrorless cameras. They do have lenses that tend to be around that 67mm, so if you do have filters, you're going to have to use step-up rings, which isn't really a pro or con. It really depends on you. If you do get a bit annoyed when it comes to step-up rings, that can be a con, but just be aware that it is a 55mm filter thread, so you will have to get step-up rings for your filters. Now, when it comes to this lens hood, it is a big con, and I really hate it. You have to make sure that Viltrox is pointing up, put it at the top, and then twist it on, but sometimes it doesn't come on properly. When it comes to the Viltrox APS-C lens, this is a metal lens cover. This is plastic. The full frame should be the metal one. The plastic one should be the APS-C because they're generally cheaper. I don't know what they were thinking when it came to a plastic lens hood, but I just don't use it. Put it out of the way. But the one thing if you don't actually use it is there is a little bit of lens flaring when it comes to bright light situations. So pointing this directly at the light, you don't really notice too many issues, but it's when it gets to this right on the corner, it actually gets a whole bunch of ghosting and this really white laser lens flare beam that comes across the lens. So you do have to be aware of that, and for that situation, having that lens hood would actually be absolutely perfect, because if you get it right on that corner, it's not going to look good. But other than that, is the G Master or the Sigma Art lens actually worth twice or 3 times the price of this? I'd have to say, depends on the situation. Yeah, sure, f1.4 is quite handy and they are very sharp, wide open. But an f1.8 at just over 400 US, I mean, that is really, really hard to beat. And the sharpness on this thing is just phenomenal. The autofocus performance and that linear manual focusing, it's a really hard lens to beat. For the price, you are going to get the best value 24mm lens out there at the moment when it comes to autofocus. But yeah, what do you guys reckon? Comment below. I'd really like to know your thoughts on this lens. I actually really like it. For the price, it's probably the best one at the moment for the 24mm f1.8. Nice fast aperture. And yeah, well done, Viltrox. You're doing a really good job when it comes to these, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, let's get it.